G'day guys, Dean here from Blog for the Blood God, and I've just got back from the Wars to Come RTT held by the Risky Rollers team where I ran the Red Corsairs. Now, I used a few different combos that are available to the Red Corsairs. One of them I discussed in my Red Corsairs Insane Bikers combo. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that combo, check out that video. And some of the other stuff I used were used in the battle report that I recently did with Adam from Down Under, where we basically use the same list that I ran in this tournament. So basically this is sort of going to be a three-part series. View it like the first part is talking about the combo, the second part is talking about the event results, and then the third part will be a battle report featuring the list that includes the combo from the event. So with that being said, let's just jump straight into this video, which is going to be talking about the event, the results, the games, my opponents, and all that sort of shit.
Blog for the Blood God.
Alrighty, first off, I'll run you through the list that I took for this event. So it was a Red Corsairs battalion. In our HQ slots, we had the Master of Possessions with Mark of Nurgle, Liber Hereticus, Warp Marked, and Mutated Invigoration, as well as the Nurgle power from the being Mark of Nurgle. And he had the Liber Hereticus, so he could cast 3, new 3. Then we had a Dark Apostle. He had the Reaver Lord Warlord trait, which allows me to regenerate command points on a 4+ at the start of each command phase, at each of my own command phases. He also had Illusory Supplication and Mark of Nurgle, so he had the Nurgle Prayer, which gives +1 toughness to a friendly unit. Then we had a Disco Lord. He had Mark of Khorne. He had Zal the Wrathful, so he was just going in there and being an absolute beatstick. In our troops, we had 2 units of 10 cultists, and we had 2 units of 5 legionnaires. So they were sort of filling out that troop slot. We had a rhino for those legionnaires to go in. In our elite slot, we had 2 units of 5 possessed, being midfield scrappers and bullies, and we had that supported by 2 Mauler Fiends. Then the main exciting part of the list was 2 large units of bikes, 2 units of 9. One of them was Mark of Khorne, Icon, and Black Mace on the Sergeant with chainswords on all. And basically their goal was to advance, charge, go in and do massive damage. And then the other unit was Mark of Nurgle, Icon on the unit, and the Black Rune of Damnation. And their goal was to go in, advance and charge, and then tie things up and box my opponent in and move block them and prevent them from getting out into the midfield. So that was the list. Now let's go through each one of my opponents. We're going to go through their list first, then we're going to go through the results, the score, and then I'll just talk a little bit about the game and how the sort of, how the game progressed and eventuated. So let's just jump into the first round. Alright, the first round was against Carl and his Craft World Eldar. So here's his list. He had a Seer Council with 2 Warlocks. He had the Avatar of Cain. He had a Farseer with Guide and Doom. He had a Farseer Skyrunner with Fortune and Executioner. He had 2 units of 10 Guardian Defenders, a unit of 5 Rangers, a unit of 10 Dire Avengers, 3 Wraith Lords with Shuriken Cannons, 10 Swooping Hawks, 8 Wind Riders, 3 Wind Riders, and a Wave Serpent. Alright, now that we've gone through Carl's list, let's have a look at the scoreboard and then I'll break down the game. So, in total, it was a 97 win to me. Carl achieved 30 victory points. I took Grind Them Down behind enemy lines and banners, and I almost maxed them all. Obviously didn't max Grind Them Down, but the rest of them I scored very high on, and I also maxed out Primary. Whereas Carl took Psychic Interrogation, No Prisoners, and Raise the Banners High. Unfortunately, he didn't get any banners. He struggled to kill my unit, so he didn't get much in the way of No Prisoners, and his Psychic Interrogation he scored quite well on. Alright, so basically the way this game worked is we were playing the Scouring, so it was Hammer and Anvil style deployment. I deployed everything on the line, ready to go in for those turn 1 charges. Carl correctly measured out my potential threat range and then deployed outside of it, which meant that he deployed very, very deep into his own deployment. Then I won the roll-off to go first, so I had to take the first turn, which I actually kind of wanted the second turn. Because he had deployed so deep, he wasn't anywhere near any of the objectives, which would have meant he would have been forced to move into my threat range, done minimal damage to me, and then I would have been able to charge him. But unfortunately, I had to go first, so basically I just moved and advanced everything up. I moved the bikes there 20 inches, I moved the Mauler Fiends advanced, the Disco Lord advanced, the possessed advanced, everything just went up the guts of the table. And my goal here was to just overload him with threats. So that basically when it went into his turn 1, he had to try and kill everything. And anything that he didn't kill was going to destroy him. And then we ticked over into his turn, and basically he failed to kill a lot. He killed like 1 or 2 bikes out of the Khorne biker unit, 1 or 2 possessed out of the same ones on that flank. He killed a Mauler Fiend, and that was it. So that meant that then in my turn, I was able to go, cool, the bikers charge the Dire Avengers and the Rangers, the possessed charge the Wind Riders, the Mauler Fiend that survives charges one of your Wraith Lords, the Nurgle bikers charge your Guardians, take you off of that objective, the Disco Lord charges another one of your Wraith Lords and kills that. So I just went in and just did absolutely massive damage to him, to the point where he just couldn't come back from it. I was all over the board. I was on every objective. I was all over the place. So he basically then was scrapping. His avatar was going in and killing things, but it wasn't enough, and it wasn't able to generate him any of the victory points that he needed. He was also going for that Psychic Interrogation, which I was able to deny on a 4+, so I was able to limit his score there. He incorrectly allocated a lot of his damage to try to kill things like the Disco Lord and the Mauler Fiends, because he knew that they were a big threat to his big chunky things like the Wraith Lords. The problem with that is it didn't align with his no prisoners, which meant he didn't kill many of my bikes, didn't kill many of the possessed, didn't even target the cultists. So that meant that I was able to really limit his no prisoners score. I was able to really limit his Psychic Interrogation. I was on his objectives for the entire game, so he never got an opportunity to get any banners points, and it just became a massive blowout in my favor. Alright, the next round was into Vincent Wang and his Grey Knights, so let's go through his list first. He had a Brotherhood Chaplain with Words of Power, Sanctuary, and Unyielding Anvil. He had a Brotherhood Librarian with Vortex of Doom, Purifying Flame, Shield of Humanity, and Psychic Epitome. He had Lord Keldor Drago with Gate of Infinity, Empiric Amplification, and Warp Shaping. Then in his troops, he had 3 units of strikes. In his elites, he had the Brotherhood Apothecary and 2 units of 10 Paladins. And then in his fast attack slots, he had 2 units of 5 Interceptors. Alright, now let's look at the scores from the game versus Vincent's Grey Knights. Alright, so looking at the scoreboard here versus Vincent, I got a 28 for primary, and then a total victory points of 64, and he got a 32 primary and then a total score of 69. So Vincent won, but it was a very narrow loss to me. I took no prisoners behind enemy lines and banners, and Vincent took Purifying Ritual behind enemy lines and banners. So we had a similar-ish game plan to each other. Mine just involved a little bit more damage dealing than his did. And basically the way this game worked is he got the first turn and he basically moved up into the center of the table. He did no damage to me in his first turn because he was pretty much just shooting bolters into those bikes, which were toughness 5 with neg 1 to wound, so he's wounding me on 6s, so he did almost no damage there. And then I made a mistake here, and I basically saw an opportunity here to kill him, and I thought if I can go in and cripple those 2 Paladin units, I'm going to win the game, because even if there's a couple left in each, they're not going to have the damage capacity left to kill me, and then I'm going to roll over him. So what I did is I basically just moved and advanced everything and charged everything in. I did this big play where with the Nurgle biker unit, I touched both Paladin units, and my thought there was, I'm going to choose to fight first into one of them and kill a bunch. Then if he interrupts with the other one, only a few models from that unit are going to be able to hit the bikers, in which case he's not going to really do a massive amount of damage to them. So he'll probably instead hit the other things that haven't struck yet. And when he does that, he'll kill a couple of those, but then he'll be tied up in combat with those Nurgle bikers. And Grey Knights can't fall back and then charge. So I was like, if I do that, he'll stay there and he'll stay in combat with these bikers that he's not going to be able to kill. That was my thought. So I charged everything in. The Mauler Fiend killed a bunch of Paladins from one unit, and then he interrupted, and instead of what I thought he was going to do and just kill the other stuff, he actually put like 5 guys from that Paladin unit into the Nurgle bikers and killed 8 out of the 9 bikers, which was insane. He was wounding me on 6s, but because Grey Knights, when they wound on 6s, they do mortal wounds in addition, he was basically just rolling fistfuls of 6s, and every one that went through was 2 damage plus a mortal. So he was just deleting those bikes. It was really bad. And as a result, I lost all my bikers, I lost a Mauler Fiend, and then it went into his turn, and now he was free to charge things. He charged and blew up my Disco Lord, he blew up my other Mauler Fiend, and it was like, now I have no damage dealing left. So this is a fucking problem. Luckily, I did go in with the Corn Bikers and do the Red Corsairs trick where you fight and then you fall back before your opponent strikes. So I was able to do that and then keep those bikers alive. And then because he was too busy dealing with the other Mauler Fiends and stuff, he didn't go for the bikers. So then they were able to go in my next turn, hit, and then do it again. And I basically did that 2 or 3 times, which was really good for behind enemy lines because it meant that I could charge into the units in the center, fight them, and then fall back and score those behind enemy line points, and then the next turn charge back in, fight, fall back, score my behind enemy lines points. So that was a really, really good trick, and that worked quite well. But I think I overcommitted on that first turn and just sacrificed way too many units. All right, and then the last game was against Michael and his Blood Angels. So let's have a look at his list. He had Dante, he had a Sanguinary Priest, he had 5 Infiltrators, he had a Sanguinary Ancient, he had a unit of 7 Sanguinary Guard with axes, he had 2 units of 3 Eliminators, then he had another detachment that had Lamatis, 5 Infiltrators, 5 Death Company with hammers, 5 Death Company with Inferno Pistols, another 5 Death Company with Inferno Pistols, 5 Sanguinary Guard with swords, another 7 Sanguinary Guard with axes, 5 Scouts, 3 Eliminators, and a Landspeeder Storm. So a pretty stock standard Blood Angels list with a few interesting little tech pieces like the Scouts and the Eliminators. So let's talk about the scoreboard from this game. So it was a 93 win to me, with Michael scoring 68 points. I took the Long War behind enemy lines and raised the banners high, and Michael took Fury, Shock, and Blade, which are all the Blood Angels or Space Marine specific secondaries. And as you can see by looking at the scores, he didn't get any for Blade, which is the one where he picks one of his characters and has to try to kill one of my characters. He didn't get a massive amount for Fury either because his Death Company were not achieving what they were trying to achieve. So, yeah. So the way this game worked out is basically I deployed, it was table quarters, so we were deploying diagonally across from each other. And basically, yeah, I just deployed everything, trying to stay outside of the charge range of all of his Sanguinary Guard, but I knew I couldn't stay out of the charge range of his Death Company, so that was fine. I basically used the Cultists to try to screen out and protect things like my characters and one of my units of bikes, but I knew that I didn't have enough Cultists to screen and wrap around both. Michael won the roll, he got first turn, sent his Death Company in and killed my entire unit of Khorne Bikers. And then he also used his Scouts to move up and his Eliminators to move up to basically move block my big things like the Mauler Fiends so that I wasn't able to get out there and do much damage. So I was like, oh fuck, this is game over. I was really concerned. But then basically I separated my Cultists, the Nurgle Bikers went out and charged into his Death Company that were in the center of the table, or I think it was his Infiltrators that were in the center of the table, and then created a big wall in front of him. I knew that he could jump over the wall having jump packs, but I was hoping that he was going to take the bait and just charge those bikes. And then basically everything else moved up in advance, trying to stay outside of that charge range so that he would only really have one valid charge target, which was the Nurgle Bikers that had Illusory Supplication on them. They had the +1 toughness from Mutated Invigoration, and they had the neg 1 to hit from the other psychic power. So yeah, then we went into Michael's turn 2, and he did take the bait. So he charged pretty much everything into those Nurgle Bikers, and I think he killed like 3. So the Blood Angels really struggle because making them hit on 4s with no rerolls really hurts their damage, and then a lot of his stuff was wounding on 6s as well. So he wasn't doing a massive amount of damage to me, which was really, really good. Or wounding on 5s, depending on whether or not he was, in Assault Doctrine. So yeah, he basically charged everything in, did almost no damage. Then in my turn, I decided to just stay in combat, because that way in his turn, he wouldn't be able to fall back and charge my other stuff. So I just kept basically buffing those bikers and keeping them alive and keeping him locked in combat with them so that he could never go anywhere or do anything. And then that allowed me to move the Mauler Fiends that were still alive up, move the Disco Lord up, and start actually hitting him and killing him while he was too busy trying to deal with these bikers. So that resulted in a massive blowout in my favor. It was really quite a swingy game. There was moments where I was like, I'm fucking dead. Then I was like, oh, he's good. then I was like, oh, now I'm dead again. Like, it was really swingy and it was a really enjoyable game. Michael's a great guy, and yeah, it was fantastic. So that more or less rounds out my tournament. 3 games, it was only an RTT, and it was a highly experimental list. This is the first time I've ran Mauler Fiends in a tournament style list. This is the first time I've ran the multiple big units of bikes. First time running Red Corsairs. So there's quite a few things that I would definitely change about the list. I'll give you a brief summary now, but I'm going to basically go through those in detail when I do my Red Corsairs Masterclass, which should be coming out within the week. Basically what I'd do is I'd get rid of that Corn Biker unit, and I would get rid of the Mauler Fiends probably, and I'd invest those points in a whole ton more Rhinos with 1 unit of Legionnaires and 1 unit of Chosen inside them. And the idea here is you've got the Legionnaires for your objective secured, you've got your Chosen for your damage dealers, and the thing that was really, really obvious to me about these games was that Red Corsairs play the mission very, very well. With OBSEC and every model counting as 2, they're really, really effective at denying your opponent's primary, and they're really, really effective at scoring things like behind enemy lines and, you know, raising banners and those sorts of things because they're so fast, they're so good at scoring and controlling objectives. That's the direction that I think the list should be. Not so much about killing things. It's okay if you go out there and you've struggled to kill anything, and by the end of the game you've been tabled. That doesn't matter. If you've been able to deny your opponents, stop them from getting any primary points the whole game, you know, you've been able to go out there and you've been able to raise your banners, you've been able to, you know, get your behind enemy lines points up, do all of these sorts of things, then you're in really good position. So I'd probably swap out the Disco Lord for a Demon Prince so that I can do that Psychic Ritual, and I'd probably just focus on Psychic Ritual, behind enemy lines, and banners, with the occasional swap of the Long War depending on, you know, the mission of my opponent. So yeah, swapping the Disco Lord out for a Demon Prince, getting rid of the bikers, the Corn Bikers, you know, and then putting those points into more units of Rhinos and Chosen. Because the other thing is that Dark Apostle, he wants to cast the Illusory Supplication or the +1 toughness on the biker unit, the Nurgle biker unit, but he needs to be within 3 inches at the start of the command phase to do it. And they're so fast, they just take off and leave him on his own. So you either need a second unit that you want to cast that on in subsequent turns, so you cast it on them, send them in, and then next turn you want to cast it on something else and send them in, so that's where the Chosen or Possessed come into play. Or you want to be able to use him really aggressively and sling him up with them. So if that means you move and advance him, but then you put a Rhino in front of him so that he's safe, and then you string the bikers back so that you can do it again in the subsequent turns, that's a really powerful combo as well. So finding a better way to utilize the the Dark Apostle, finding a Disco Lord instead of a DP instead of a Disco Lord, and instead of the bikers, more objective secured models, and then I think you've got a really, really strong Red Corsairs list. So with that being said, I'm going to leave it here. There'll be a battle report with my list coming out very soon, and then I'll also be doing a masterclass on this whole faction, this whole sub-faction of Red Corsairs very soon. And there's also the insane biker combo where I basically break down how this biker unit works, the Nurgle biker unit, and how to best wield it in games. So there's a bunch of Red Corsairs content coming out. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
Look for the Blood God.
The Warhammer community suffers from some of the most prohibitively expensive essentials in the world, especially Australian content creators. Every single day, Dean wants to create content, but he can't. Suffering from old, worn-out brushes, expensive model kits, and costly software and equipment, he can't endure much longer. Just look at this dirty paint water. Would you drink this? Would you let your child? Even a small monthly donation can help provide Dean with clean paint water, basic tools for survival, and access to life-saving information and education. So please, follow the links in the description below and find out how you can sponsor a mad cunt like Dean today and end the suffering. Suffering that is cruel, unsustainable, and your fault.
Do your objective markers ever get lost behind terrain or other models and become difficult to see? Do they ever get bumped and accidentally moved during a game? And do they ever spark arguments about distances? Well, not anymore. Introducing the blog for the blood god, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers. Made from the same material as astronaut suits, or maybe military equipment, or probably neither of those things, this 2mm thick neoprene synthetic rubber is tear resistant, water resistant, and is designed to last. But that's not all. The blog for the blood god, not even remotely patented neoprene objective markers come in a variety of different designs and styles to suit any faction represented in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. These objective markers are a perfect gift for yourself or a friend, and are a perfect way to flex and show your opponent that not only are you a smarter, cooler, and better 40k player than them, but you also have more disposable income than they do. For the low price of $25, you'll get not one, not two, but 6 neoprene objective markers, perfectly designed for 9th edition Warhammer 40k. But wait, there's more. For a limited time only, people who sign up on Patreon to support Blog for the Blood God as a Skull Champion tier $5 per month member will gain access to a custom design service where I will design a unique logo to support their gaming club, like the one I did to the left here for the Potato Farmers local gaming club here in Melbourne. Follow the links in the description of this video to pick up your set today.